Good morning, if anyone's watching. I may be here talking to myself. Somehow I feel like today might be better off if I did talk to myself. Good morning, Chuck. How are you? Morning, Uncas.
Morning, buddy.
How are you?
I gotta turn up my volume.
Whoops. Turn my echo box on.
There we go. Huh?
I said I needed to turn my echo box off there. I still had my volume on the other channel. You can hear it. I can hear it echo. I'd leave it on because then I could talk to myself. Except that when I do, I can't. It's delayed, so I start to talk and then it starts to talk, and it really gets me confused. It's like I'm not, my mind's trying to say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Your mouth's outrunning your something here. Something ain't right."
Oh my.
Chuck said,
I'm having an allergy day.
"Oh boy, I love those." I sound like I am.
It's just one of them days.
Yeah, here's my other new cup. Can you identify these two particular logos?
Well, one of them's Ruger. Is that a win? I don't know what that logo
Marlin.
is.
It's a
Marlin. Marlin,
which is owned by Ruger now. Ruger's building Marlins. Oh, well, there's Tina too. I'm sorry. I saw Chuck and I didn't see Tina. She says, "I'm here too." Sorry about that.
Good morning, Chuck. Good morning, Tina.
I don't know if my wife will be here or not. She's, well, that wasn't good. I just dripped.
She's hurting in it, isn't she?
Yeah, I don't know. Said she'd be here, but I don't know if she hadn't slept very good, so if she fell back to sleep, I don't want to go wake her up. She went to therapy yesterday, and she came back. I don't know. The best way to say this isn't a polite way to say this. She came back moaning a little bit about everything they jerked and pulled and twisted. But we'll see what happens. Apparently, they got to go ahead to.
Good morning, Julie. You're in Athens, Tennessee.
What are you doing in Athens, Tennessee today, Julie McCowan? Good morning. Athens. I just read I just not read. Listened to the craziest story online about
that the fat electrician did.
Yeah, that the fat electrician did.
I love his part.
I'd worked with people from Athens. I never heard that story. And just so you guys know what I'm talking about a little bit, I'm not going to go into all the details, but right after World War II, lots of veterans came home and to that part of Tennessee, and well, all part of Tennessee. And when they got back, they discovered that I guess while everybody was away, local politicians had taken over and basically turned the whole county and McMinn County and other places actually. The guy that started it was in Memphis, and they took over the town and just closed off all the election places but one, and the sheriffs and deputies picked who got the vote, and so needless to say, the same guy always won. And the veterans came home and said, "The hell with that," and they went and robbed it. Well, I won't say they robbed. They went to the National Guard Armory and borrowed some weapons, and by God, shut that down. I never heard that story. It was a big deal, apparently.
Yeah.
Good morning, Diana. Good morning, Dave. Disney Dreams. Welcome in, buddy. Good to see you.
Good morning, Dave. Diana.
Dave's been doing some regular shows of an evening, and I hope are you back, Dave? You got things kind of back on even keel. He was having a little bit of internet issues last time I popped on there. How's Canada, Miss Diana? You're visiting your in-laws. Well, my goodness. Well, I better not say anything about anybody because I don't know who your in-laws are. I'm not that dumb. Julie, ask your in-laws if they know anything about the Battle of Athens. Canada's hot. Yeah, well, most of the U.S. is hot right now, I think. Still trouble, but working on moving back to Michigan. Oh, you're moving back to Michigan. Oh, my goodness, I did not know that, Dave. That's a big deal.
Back to Michigan.
I knew he was a Michigander as opposed to a Michigoose.
Huh? That was a bad dad joke right there.
Well, we had a long time ago. I had that discussion with some Michiganders, and I said, we need to get this squared away. I don't think this is entirely correct. I'm not sure Michigander. I got another one of them scientific mental issues there. I'll ask them. They're from Sweetwater. Well, that's close enough if they've been around there. I'm just curious. Like I said, I've worked with people from down there. I've never heard anybody talk about that story. Even found good news. New donut place. Whoa. Well, okay. Then next time, once you get settled in, we'll expect you to be bringing the donuts, Dave. It is, but back to Diana's thing. It's been in the mid to upper 90s here a day or two, and of course, feel like temperature with the humidity is over 100, and it was nasty a couple of days. It was thunderstorms rolled in and kind of cool things down, and this morning it didn't feel too bad. I don't
know what we are right now. I'm gonna have to go look.
And he's gonna tell us he's not hot. I know it. They had a cold snap not long ago. I don't know if it's warm back up there or not. I tell you, it's been the craziest thing. Canada and Michigan been hotter than Florida, and Florida gets back hot. What'd you find?
It's 55.
55. I could live with 55.
It'll probably get up in the mid 80s today, I bet. It did yesterday.
That's the thing about where you're at. Out there in the evenings, even when it's hot in the daytime, it tends to get cool at night. Back here, however, it gets up to 90, and the oven-like situation with the humidity and the overbearing pressure, whatever, keeps it hot. It's like being in an oven. with the door closed. Even if it's off, it stays pretty warm. Good morning, Carol.
It's like mom and dad's, they get that gross southern Ohio humidity, and
They're as bad as we. They're as bad.
it'll be 90 degrees in the daytime or hotter, and it gets down to like a really nice, cool 78 at night.
Oh my goodness, Diana! It's gonna actually be 100, or it's gonna be a feel like temperature. It doesn't matter. It's going. I don't even know why they say that anymore. I wish they'd just go ahead and say it's gonna be 100. It's
100 degrees in Canada, gee.
that's backwards.
The moose flies are bad now.
I bet they are. You guys have a lot of problems with that, Diana. Where you're at, do you have a lot of the big biting flies, like they get out in the wetter areas. I don't start to say swamps, but
They probably have little ones and big ones.
well, they probably do.
Black flies and no-see-ums and big deer flies and big horse flies and moose flies. We have those big green-headed horse flies have just like exploded here in the last week. The horses are running from them, but knock on wood, our skeeter population's been kind of low.
Well, that's handy.
Last night I went out and sat outside and watched bats for a long time.
Why'd you do that? Did somebody get you thinking about bats?
No, I went outside for something and they were just swirling around like a volcano of bat, or like a tornado of bats. It was just, I don't know if I've ever seen that many here.
Wow. Oh, well, you said it's almost like they just come back.
Yeah, and we have several species, but I think these are all little brown bats. But man alive, were they going nuts last night.
Biting flies mostly at the beach, not too bad in the city. Okay. Well, I told you about my bat. I had a bat out here in front of the house. Not this morning, but yesterday morning. I got up early. We had this neat, if anything can be neat about this kind of weather, but it got actually cooled off yesterday morning. I think it was, low 70s, but it didn't feel, maybe it's even lower than that because it didn't feel bad outside. And I went out and sat on the porch and the sun was rising, but it wasn't, it wasn't bright daylight. It was the fog and everything had kept it. It was just sort of a glow in the east, and then as the sun got up, it didn't really get daylight much. But before it started really like brightening up, I had that bat that was flying up in front of the house. Oh, your train! I just heard the train.
Yeah, that's the old 814 going by.
Well, anyway, that bat was out there catching bugs and doing didos and flying around, and I'm sure now that that's what it was. I looked up the scientific dimensions of a big brown bat, and I did not realize that they can actually get as big as they can get. Their wingspan can get, I think I read between 7 and 12 inches.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's bigger than I thought, and I'm sure that's what it was. But man, he or she was the Jonathan Livingston seagull of bats. He was having fun catching bugs. I have to believe that I realize they're eating to survive, but I have to believe that they have to find some enjoyment in that, because he was really out there swooping and diving and cutting and turning. It's amazing what they can do.
When we went to Africa, the tracker guys that hung out with us all the time. The black gentlemen that were working with us, they would sit up in the back of the truck. We'd go like do a campfire on a knob or something, and sit around and laugh and giggle and
No alcohol.
and there was
I'm sure.
no, there was none of that. And there were bats everywhere over there. And I would throw my ball cap up in the air, and those bats would chase it, all the way back down to the ground.
How big were
And those guys thought that was so funny.
they? Nobody had ever thought to throw a
You
cap.
never play with bats? You never took your fly rod and a popper?
That's cheap. Yeah, that's bat fishing. Somebody I know used to do that, and I think they actually hooked a couple.
Yeah, we did all. We did all the time.
Did you?
Brad and I used to catch them all the time.
That's pretty good fight.
We started clipping the hooks off.
Yeah.
And they'd just bite the popper and then wouldn't get hooked. But they wouldn't turn loose of that neither.
Yeah. I tell you what.
I caught a blue jay doing that one day too.
You're the one that I knew somebody knew caught a blue jay.
Yeah.
The
swooped right in there. I wasn't trying to catch him. I was fishing up underneath a bunch of hanging limbs in a pond.
Oh, you were actually fishing, and
I was fishing for bluegills on the beds, and I rolled casted up under those hanging limbs, and that blue jay just came out of nowhere and like had it.
Did they have a fruit bat size bat over there in I can't remember. I don't know if they do. Most of those are in Asia, I think, but do they have the big?
I don't know, like a flying fox or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
No, we didn't see any. I'm not sure what species they have over there. The ones that we had, there was kind of the place where we stayed, there was a building kind of in the middle of the compound that it was a kind of an indoor place. You could have a big fire, build a big fire inside. It was kind of an open building, but the top had a
hole, chimney hole or a hole.
Well, it had, I don't even know what you call those deals. It had one of them deals sitting up on top. It looks like a little house, right? It was kind of a four-peak or a slanted roof, and there was a deal up on top of that building that had access to the open. It let the air in and the smoke out, and there would be thousands of bats that would roost in that of an evening. I don't know how they stood it because we were burning fires in there. But they would be packed that top of that building full, and then right at dusk they would all merge. It was almost like being at Carlsbad or something. It wasn't quite that dramatic, but.
Well, I just looked, and if I'm reading this correctly, there's about 32 species of bats in South Africa.
Yeah, and I don't know how many we saw.
I mean, they've even got pipistrelles, which may even be the same as we've got. And they've also got a bat-eared fox and a bat hawk. I can only imagine what he feeds on. They got a common pipistrelle, a rusty pipistrelle, large-eared bats.
You said
a rhinophilus bat. I got to look at that. If he's got a horn in the middle of his head, I'm just going to go nuts. Oh, he
Danny
kind of
got
does.
to be the most contrary hound in history. What did Danny do now?
Well, you know, Danny lost a leg.
Yeah, he
Oh,
got bitten by a rattlesnake, didn't he?
well, that's what I think happened.
That's the theory.
Yeah, I think the vets finally thought maybe that might be correct. Last time we talked, anyway.
Well,
That
we
bat
were
does have
telling Tina that
makes sense. That's what makes sense to me.
the venom on a sea horridus is awful.
Yes, it is.
It's awful.
Yeah, much worse than a copperhead. Even though copperhead could get in and get infected and get he's out running crazy. Morning, Kay. Welcome in this morning. Well, I got 2 or 3 things I want to talk about today, I think.
This Kay is.
And I got a couple
God
of
awful where you're at, Kay. Weather-wise.
She's in South Kakalaki. Well, we haven't talked about that, Kay, and you know what? I didn't even know about that until yesterday. Yeah, there was a lot of reports a couple of nights ago about a fireball in the sky. They're pretty sure now, or at least what I've read, Kay may have read something different, that it was a meteorite that came out of the. There is an actual. I started to say scheduled. That's not really scheduled. Normal meteor shower going on this week, but it was one I wasn't familiar with. It was like it had a strange name too. I have to look it up. But anyway, they think it might have just been a large meteor that came out. But I saw a couple of pictures of it or videos. I guess people caught on security cams or doorbell cams or something. I mean, it's pretty neat looking. Big old streak and a larger, sword.
Burning object in the
burning object at one end of the streak, and I didn't know you guys. I wasn't sure who all saw those, Kay, or saw that. I don't know. Maybe if there was more than one around. I don't know if it was.
Diana said it's the booted.
Yeah, that's it.
Booted meteor shower.
No, I had never heard of that one until yesterday. I looked it up. I forgot about that, but as far as what he did today, he wouldn't come in. He's looking for trouble. Like he wants to be a 2-legger. He keeps it up. He may be. Oh, she saw it. Oh, I believe it was real, Kay. I have no doubt about that. I just think it. I mean, I just think it. I think I tend to go with the astrology people or astronaut. What's the right word? Not astrology, astronomy folks who think it was a meteorite from the meteor shower. But I don't know. What have you heard? Have you heard different, Kay? We honestly thought it was a plane the way it was. Yeah, I could see how that could happen. There was some nasty. Did you guys get not changing the subject, okay? But I just happened to think. I was watching weather one night this week. Maybe it was Thursday. I was talking to somebody. Anyway, and there were some nasty storms popping up on the other side of the mountain, but I don't know. I don't know if you guys that got down here. It was weird because they skipped over us that night and were banging all over the other eastern side of the mountains. But then then there was some down towards Chattanooga. And I think there was some over your way, Kay, but I don't know if they got all the way down there or not. And then there was, again, in the Midwest, there was tornadoes. Ryan Hall was all excited.
Oh
tornado.
yeah, he gets all
He gets worked up, buddy.
he loves him some weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Phil used to say, and he might be right. He I don't know. Phil, knowing Phil, he may have kept data points, but he used to swear that every time there was big weather event, snow blizzard or hurricane season or some or whatever, that the people at the Weather Channel went into some sort of a frenzy, and then all the women ended up pregnant after it was over. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And I've noted, I think he might have been right. I'm not sure, but good chance of it. I mean, Phil don't make his stuff up. He's the guy. He's kind of guy collects data
And remembers it forever.
and remembers it forever. Yeah, he did have a bad storm, but not as bad as others. We didn't have the hail. Well, we didn't. We haven't had any hail. We had a. We had a. We've had those spotty boomers and then they move on kind of things this week, and you can see the clouds gathering every afternoon. I mean, we're in that kind of a cycle, but now if we get the locust, I'll have bingo. Bingo. Okay, did you have the meteor in your backyard or on your bingo card?
So
I didn't see that bingo part.
speaking of locusts,
They're all gone here.
or cicadas, Mom and Dad never did get any.
They were just it was
But just west of them was eaten up.
well, we had a they're
You
now
had 'em
they're
bad,
just
didn't
gone.
you?
Huh?
You had them bad, didn't
Yeah,
you?
well, we had them. I've seen them worse, but yeah, we had a pretty good hatch, and but they weren't. We had carcasses left here, but they weren't so much right here. They were
Right.
sort of over the hill or at the top of the ridge, and they were just every morning that you could hear it start building, just this howl. That's what best I can describe it. And when they're all doing it, it gets a lot louder, and then it would fade out some at night, but I haven't noticed them in a day or two, so I think they're all gone here. I think it's over the.
Well, like I said, I talked to Mom and Dad, and they're like, we didn't have any. They got big jar flies, but they always have big jar flies, those big green ones.
Yeah, well, we have those every year. I don't count those. There was a tornado. You mean Rome, New York, Chuck? I didn't hear about this one. It said it killed 3 people. I wish, Tina, Kay, I wish we had seen that. I really do. It was pretty cool. But I mean, you just have to unless you were specifically out watching that meteor shower, then I'd say you had a pretty good chance of catching it. But otherwise, you just have to be lucky, sitting out on the porch or doing something.
Is it still going on, or is it done?
Which?
The meteor shower.
I don't know. Diana, did you happen to check that or read that part? I didn't.
We get them sometimes that last for like a week. Seems like.
Well, we probably do too, but we can't see them. You can see them.
Yeah.
I don't know how many have ever been out where there's not a lot of. If you've lived in light pollution all your life, go treat yourself and get out somewhere where there's no light and just be amazed at the stars that are up
Marvel at the number of stars.
I probably told this, but okay. Boothead meteor shower, known as the June Bootids, is active each year from about June 22nd to July 2nd. So it's still going on.
A woman and 2 6-year-old twins.
Oh, last night was its peak, actually. Dang, I wish I had gone that. Well, it was kind of overcast here. I don't think we were so
I was out
in 260.
looking at bats, but I didn't see any. But maybe I couldn't. I don't know.
I don't know which direction they're in. It doesn't say which way to look. Well, I'm sure it does if I look far enough. But this point in the sky. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. The point in the sky. Oh, the constellation Boots. I don't know how that's pronounced. Butez, Butte. Reminds me of a movie. I don't know if you ever saw this or not. Mark's seen a lot of movies, so he might have. But oh crap, what's the guy's name? Something in the fifth dimension. And I believe the guy was a comic book character. And it's the only movie I know of that's ever been made. And Phil knew about him, so Phil told me about it. And there was the evil villain guy's name was John Butte. And everybody would pronounce it booty and booties, and he'd say Butte, Butte. And it was kind of funny of a movie.
Our company had just started our cookout.
Oh, okay. So it was early in the evening then. That's cool. I wish we had been out looking. I got to start paying more attention to that. We don't have the perfect situation here, but it's much better here than it was when we were in Knoxville. What part kills me is all of our neighbors around us. It's like a halo.
All have lights on, don't they?
Damn security lights, pardon me, out along the driveways or something. I hate that. We have to really get, some of it gone. We have to literally get in the shadow of the house or something.
So when I lived down the creek here, we had one out there at the driveway, a light. And I finally got tired of not being able to see the sky, and I just took a rifle and shot it out.
Did they replace it? That sort of thing can happen.
I told them don't come back.
Was it on your place?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
okay.
It's not on our place here. It was on the place.
No, I know. It's the place you live down
the creek. Yeah.
Shut it out. That happens a lot.
Well, it was just aggravating, you couldn't see the sky.
Oh, it was noonish?
Holy buckets.
Oh, when you said company, you meant your company you work at or work for. I thought you meant company at your house. You were having dinner, cooking out or something. My goodness. It must have been pretty bright then. Because the picture I saw looked bright. I just didn't realize cameras can brighten up the sky so much these days. I didn't realize it was actually at noon. Wow. That is something. I wish I'd known, but we've been looking for that.
Well, I wouldn't have been out looking for bats at that time.
At noon?
Because it only been 10 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been out doing that. You might have been doing something.
I was outside, but not looking for bats.
Well, you could have been, but you might not have been seeing anything. If you're trying to do a survey,
you can always look.
You might want to adjust your time though for you're collecting data. Man, I wanted to miss net so bad.
I might have been talking to you actually.
You might have been
about that time.
That's true. More adventures by D.
My bride was in Bear Lake, Utah / Idaho, swimming. Well, on her way over there anyway.
Oh, she go over there this week too? I didn't realize that.
It's just about, I don't know how long drive, an hour or so from here to Bear Lake, and she took the blackest urban assault vehicle that
They haven't. Mark and Shauna
It
haven't.
looks like a hitman car, is what it looks like.
Shauna has a new car anyway. She now has a grandkid wagon to haul all the kids. She's got something big enough to haul all the
A
grandkids.
Jeep Cherokee,
Laredo.
Grand Cherokee Laredo. And she started calling it Larry, and then she's like, "No, I can't name it after your dad."
Well, it might become cantankerous. You don't want
And so I don't know what she's settled on now. But it was
that.
she was like, "I'm gonna call it Larry." No, I'm not gonna call it Larry.
When I first went to work for the TVNA,
The TVNA.
well, that's what some people used to call it. We had out in the field
Tennessee Valley and Authority.
Yeah. We had a lot of Jeep Cherokees, but the small, well, they were smaller
The
than
smaller
anyway.
ones.
Yeah, the small work. I mean, they were our work vehicles, so they were pretty stripped down. But I'll tell you something. I never was a huge Jeep fan. I mean, I thought there was other things because for a long time there, they weren't very dependable, to be honest. I mean, they had problems, but I tell you, I drove that thing, and after a while, I really came to respect that vehicle. Now, you could just about, and it was small enough. They were still small enough that you could go just about anywhere in them. And I got into some places where I should not have been, and they came right on through, and I was quite pleased. They were.
Well, her Laredo is.
Hey, Hitchhiking Bones from the Lone Star State is here. Don't anybody say anything about Texas. Do what?
Howdy, Texan. The her Laredo is long. It's got 3 banks of seats, you know.
Right. That's what she needed or wanted.
And she needed a vehicle that she could haul all them babies in, and the whole passel of them.
Which is 6 now or 5.
6.
So that's what I thought. 6.
Yeah, we got 6.
How many?
Some of them have to be facing forward, and some of them have to be facing backwards. And
some of them are still in car seats. I want Brenda.
All of them probably legally should be in a car seat,
except Della,
except for
or not Della,
Eiley, who is our oldest, and she's taller than I am. Pardon my French. She don't need to be in no car seat. But I have adult male friends that, by the standards, probably should be in a car seat.
You're talking about height and weight or size, right?
Yeah, like height, weight. Yeah.
If somebody
got nothing to do with age. And they all grew up in the bed of a pickup truck going 75 mile an hour down the highway like we did.
With 2 dogs and 3 people with them in the back with them. And
when you look up over the hood, a June bug hits you right in the forehead and knocks you down.
If you've never ridden and standing up in the bed of a pickup, you might have missed that thrill.
We were going by where Dad used to work there in Upper East Tennessee, that machine shop he worked at.
Piney Flats.
Right there at Piney Flats. And I don't remember what highway we were on. Probably going to Bristol or somewhere. Yeah, and we may have been going all the way to Virginia to pick up coal or something. I don't know. But I remember being in the bed of the truck with, you might have even been in there. And I just peeked up over the top of the hood, and that big old ginormous 1.5 inch long June bug hit me in the forehead, and it literally just knocked me down in the bed.
It used to be a kind of a standard joke. You could tell how much fun a motorcycle rider was having behind me. Bugs were in his teeth.
So I got a buddy that runs a little tiny gas station in eastern Wyoming called Bear Mountain Station, and he had moved to cowboy country, lived in the middle of nowhere, ran this little owned and ran this little gas station right on Highway 85 heading towards Sturgis.
Uh-huh.
And and he was a reformed old biker, you know, outlaw biker kind of a guy. And he had a whole rack in his store. He had a whole rack of these cans that looked like permanent, like a permanent can, like
I know
like
what.
yellow and green, kind of a
Uh-huh. I
great big,
know what you're
like
going.
like a big old paint can, and it was called Spray and Ride. And you could
That's
trailer your motorcycle to within like 10 miles of Sturgis and then spray this stuff all over you and then ride in.
like you've been
And
riding
it
for.
was and it was full of like bug parts and dirt.
I've seen that. I think it's a
And
real
I
thing.
meant to buy a can of that one time, and I just like lost interest or forgot to buy it or whatever. And boy, I kicked myself. I loved it.
Okay, I don't think I ever saw the Loki show. What were they called? What was TV? What did TVA stand for in that case? I flipped something on a while ago, and I thought, oh my God, what is it? You look like a news thing. And one of the steam plants, not far from, well, not it's not far from here. It was over near where I used to work. Um, they showed them blowing the towers down, the stacks that were left there. They retired that plant altogether, and and I thought it was. They said it was an implosion, and I thought the thing had actually blown up, but they just happened to get it on security cams or something again. But turns out they were doing it on purpose. They've completely shut that plant down. So everybody I knew that worked there is gone. I'd be curious to know what they do with that property. That's
Which property's that on?
Bull Run Steam
On Bull
Plant,
Run.
which was actually on Melton Hill Lake, and well, Bull Run Creek and Melton Hill Lake is what it was on. And Melton Hill's part is on the Clinch River.
Right.
Clinch River is formed by the Clinch and the Powell rivers, and then they go through after they go through the dam. It's just the Clinch, and the Clinch then goes into Mountain Hill, which is just kind of it's what it's all about anyway. Was just controlling that channel. Well, actually, they used to have commercial traffic up there, but it's not a very big reservoir, and it's more riverine, but it's also more populated. So if it wasn't nobody lived on it, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But a whole lot of it. Well, back up a minute. It does border on, but that's why I'll be interested to know what they do with that property, and I'll tell you why in a minute. There's a lot of federal land there because it's all up against that secret city in Oak Ridge.
Oh yeah.
That we're not supposed to talk about. No, seriously, they that land. Speaking of public land that might be for sale, that land was actually not bought by taxpayer money. That land where that plant was sitting was actually bought by money from the power plant. So it's a different situation. I'd be curious. I had to go over there and work a time or two. We had a couple that had ag tracts that somehow or another they talked us into managing. And then we also had a couple that had cemeteries on them that had been moved away from the plant itself, but were still on their property. And I had to go over and visit those a time or two because somebody was in there doing something they weren't supposed to do, or somebody was looking for a cemetery and they couldn't find it. That was actually kind of an interesting one because when I did find it, it was really overgrown. But they had all these little they'd marked every grave in it, even if they didn't have a real stone, because it was an old cemetery, and they marked everything with these little metal markers, kind of like I used to remember seeing it. I used to see those in graveyards, but they'd be like a foot marker,
Right.
and they'd have a little bit of information on them, and the name or something, maybe the date, but then that was all there was on it. And they could, I guess, they were set up so you could change the letters and make them a little bit more flexible. But those woods were just full of those. I started finding them in there, in different places. It was not a huge cemetery as cemeteries go, but for around here in the woods, it was pretty good size. Because you find them around here in the woods sometimes, especially on TVA land and Forest Service land, and we don't have BLM land, so. Time Variance Authority. Thank you, Kay. Well, TVA might could stand for that, I guess.
We used to get a guy come in the office that was always looking for that BML land. Where's the nearest BML land that I can hunt antelope on or whatever, It's like,
BML. Oh man, that talk about confusing things. I mean, not that, but you had Forest Service out there. You guys had Forest Service land, BML land,
BOR lands.
Yeah, that's land reclamation,
right? Fish and Wildlife Service lands, because we got some big old refuges over here. But we had BOR is the Bureau of Reclamation. And they're always on the water, mostly.
Right.
They run a lot of the dams and things out here.
They were responsible for building most of those dams, like Glen Canyon Dam and some of those.
And they, and then we had state land. You had state land mixed in, and then you got that evil zone of land ownership called the checkerboard.
Oh God, yes.
Which is every other section is public and every other section is private.
Yeah, and they're just they literally look like a checkerboard, a section, a section, a section, a section. And that runs from Canada to Mexico almost down through there. I mean,
it's all associated with the railroads.
Right, the railroads caused that.
And it was, I believe, if I recall my stats correctly, it was 30 miles north, 30 miles south of the railroad. Every other section they gifted to the rail company to start towns.
To put towns in, yeah.
And when they got out here, it was like, well, we ain't building towns out there. There ain't any water or whatever. It just.
Yeah.
So it all ended up being in grazing associations would pick that land up, or Anadarko Petroleum would pick up all that land. Now it's wind farms and people wanting to build nuclear power plants and who knows what.
I shouldn't even ask this question. I'm not saying, but that can happen on the private part, or do they always come to the public part to ask?
No, they'll end up with it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. See, that's the thing. They used to come to us looking for things like that because they wanted it free, basically.
Yeah, they'll end up with all the private surrounding, and then there's no access anymore to that.
Yeah, that property.
That chunk of public anymore. The public has no access to it.
No more hunting.
Although now in Wyoming, it may be in the whole West, that corner crossing is now legal.
Yeah, I was just telling something. I think I mentioned that to Brenda the other day.
Because it was not here forever.
So it really wasn't legal there for a while, huh? Or it just
my entire career, you were not, unless you had permission from the private landowners that owned those sections. the private sections, you could not go from one corner of BLM to the next
That's
because you were violating their airspace or something.
some crap like that. Somewhere in there, you had to cross over. I mean, so you know what that means. We're talking about literally think of a checkerboard, and you got blacks and reds, and the corners where the blacks touch have a red on either side, and then we're talking about being able to hop from one black to the other black. And in some places that wasn't, well, he said it wasn't legal for a long time out there. I ran into that here a few times where people had private property that pointed out up against us, and somebody wanted to cross over onto our property. We had the same discussions, not to the extent you guys did, but it did have. All right, we're going to talk about the Celts a little bit now. I learned something, and as usual, I've discovered that I don't know near enough about this subject to talk about it, probably because there's so much to it that I didn't realize. I just kept learning, and there's a couple of really good documentary type videos on YouTube called the Celts, and I actually got a lot of information from that, and learned some interesting things. But we're going to talk about the Celts. I always thought about Celts as being from Britain and England, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, those people, and I always associated them with Vikings. Stay tuned because that's going to change. So anyway,
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay, I changed the letter in here so you could read Morris's quote about the rabbit hunter. I hope.
Oh, it's beautiful now.
Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate it. What do you think about my picture? I kind of like that. I didn't stick an arrow in the bunny just for everybody else's sake, but
I think it's great.
Apparently we both missed him, or whoever that is. Could have been us.
I've missed a lot of rabbits just like that.
Rabbits are not hard to miss. They're a lot easier to miss than they are to hit sometimes. So anyway, this is the home, the whatever you call it, housework, what do they call it? Chores. I'm done with that. So let's move on and talk about the Celtic people. Like I said, I always associated the Celts with Vikings, and then once they got to England and Scotland, or what's now England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales, those were the Celts, and Brittany in France. But that's not really true. And the Celts actually are originated in middle of Asia, or not Asia, but middle of Europe, almost in Asia. Well, in some places they probably were at the edge of Asia. If you look at that map down there, you can see the lighter green color goes almost to Turkey, and I think officially or historically the Strait of whatever that split is in Turkey, that's where Constantinople or Istanbul, whatever they call it now. That's used to be the line for Asia and Europe. I don't know if they still say that or not. They might be like DNA. They're looking at it in a microscope and think it's a little bit over this way or a little bit over that way. But anyway, the Celts were also the Gauls were Celts, which are always associated with Germanic tribes. And they fought and they whipped the Romans several times because they were actually a quite powerful people and one of the most advanced cultures. I'm not going to say civilizations. They were a little bit different because they were scattered. They weren't settled. When I think of civilizations, I think of Rome and everything it found out to be, but something like that. But the Celts didn't settle down that way for the most part. But if you look at this and you can read through there a little bit, you can see where they were at and when. And what it boiled down to was probably the reason why I associate them with the United Kingdom now and Brittany and France is because that's pretty much where they ended up being Celtic culture. The other got blended and mixed and changed or conquered and changed. And over there, they didn't get conquered and whipped till much later. And you mixed them. Then you mix in some picks and do all that. So there was a lot of stuff going on there. The darkest green on this picture now, where the what few Celtic languages remain are spoken. The rest of the world, there's no real Celtic language or associated language spoken. And a really strange thing to me, maybe it won't be to everybody else, but a really strange thing to me was they left no written record. They have artifacts, they have things that they made. They were the kings of iron ore production, iron ore manipulation, and sword. That's why they became what?
Kay's got the song Constantinople.
Sorry, Kay.
One of our favorite cartoon characters, which we're not allowed to say, always called it Constantinople. You know, he was always getting lost in Albuquerque.
Yeah, he didn't take
that guy.
He forgot to take that turn always. Anyway, so the Celts, I'm going to say that, not Celtic yet. The Celts were very, very important in Middle Europe, and like I said, they whipped the Romans quite a few times until certain things would happen, and they would be at a weak point, and Julius Caesar rode in and started, kicking them out of Italy and all kinds of stuff because they ransacked and ruled northern Italy down to Rome. They sacked Rome at least once, maybe twice.
So I assume that the Thracians were also a Celtic people.
I didn't see their name, but I imagine they could have. I think they might have been. I didn't actually see them lumped in, but they had to be associated. They're right there with them, and they could have been. Like I said, it's a little
Spartacus was a Thracian.
Okay.
And
that
he was from up in that yellow polygon kind
that
of
would make
country.
sense then. Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say they are.
They were probably a tribe of Gauls or something, but
yeah, and that's they talk about Celtic people. It's different. It's a culture that was widespread, but they didn't for a long time. They didn't really settle down, so there wasn't like a center of their civilization.
Right.
And like I said, they never had a written language, which is just crazy to me. They didn't they didn't have any kind of written record of their history. So what we know about them is what we find in artifacts and stuff. We don't.
And then anything the Romans wrote.
And anything the Romans wrote about them, correct.
Which is going to be biased, but
just a tiny bit. Because like I said, they kicked booty down there several times.
They killed each other all the time.
Yeah, they were hard on each other, and the Celts were really hard on them for a long time. But they, like I said, they were very, I won't say artistic. They learned how to do a lot of things with metals: gold, copper, bronze. They were advanced in it. They were the most advanced iron/steel worker civil culture in all of Europe for a long time. And the picture on the left is actually a Roman sculpture, and it was actually created to represent the death of the Celts and those nations that were, Rome had conquered. So that's called the Dying Gaul, but that's what it was about. And then I've got things in here that are just more about how artistic they were in some cases, and that helmet has got some really cool handwork in it if you look at it close. Um, and that word up there is pronounced Latin, and I looked that up and had that pronounced correctly.
John.
But, hey, John, new picks. Oh, John, I forgot to get the Carol, hurry, get the permission slips out. Make sure everybody's covered because I think I have another one or two in here that might get a little more personal without thinking about it. John got here just in time for the naked pictures. Anyway, and that's why I've got this. These are just things that they've discovered and scattered around in different places. I mean, there were areas where they were more concentrated, and they did have small villages, but they never had a big central cities. They didn't do that. I think they were too busy pillaging and maybe out having a big time. But these are just stuff they found that were part of their Bronze Age stuff. But then they moved, like I said, they moved rapidly into the Iron Age.
They loved horses.
And this is kind of how things were spread. Yeah, they did spread out for the Bronze Age in about 1100 BC, and you can kind of see where they're. But these people were all in this area too, and I don't know why, but I forgot to put up the descriptive box here for these. But like I said, they were the first culture to move into the Iron Age, which really gave them an advantage on everybody when they wanted to, ride in and pillage, because they were definitely playing with a what's the word they use when you're playing with stacked deck compared to everybody else. But they did do, like I said, they did do some amazing things with copper and brass and gold. They've got some beautiful gold stuff, things they made over the years. And let's see, I can't remember what this Galatian I guess I'm going to say that's Galatian swirls. I can't remember what that was associated with exactly.
Looks like a hub off a wheel.
It does, doesn't it?
Like a chariot or something.
Which they did do that. They really enjoyed chariot races. Was something that the Celts got into. I guess that's where the Romans got it. And again, as they move out and they start to build, now they did build a few city forts. Because they were beginning to be attacked, like by Rome and things. So they started trying to do this. But what's, again, kind of strange about this, they didn't stay there. They built them, and then things just played out. I think they talk about them they were very nomadic, and I think they preferred it that way. They were also so warlike, and they became the greatest mercenaries in all of Europe, or all of that part of the known world back then. And so they got hired out a lot to do somebody else's dirty work. And it all had to do with their weaponry and how good they got at using it, and the fact that they had better weapons because they had better steel. And not only did they learn how to do iron, which was what a lot of cultures moved into iron as it came along, but they still didn't know how to heat treat it and temper it and do all that kind of stuff. Well, the Celts figured all that out. They're the ones that did that, and so they were always ahead of everybody in the what did we used to call it?
Metallurgy.
Well, metallurgy, but I mean, when countries around the world, we were arms race. They were always leading the arms races. So they would build these. They built these forts, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit. Fortified areas, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But when they did that, they would have to start farming, and they just weren't great farmers apparently. So they would farm the land out, and it would, they wouldn't be able to feed themselves again, and they weren't out getting it. So they just leave and start all over again. It's kind of what it amounted to. It's an interesting culture.
People that keep pigs ain't no better than farmers.
Thank you, Carol. What'd you say?
I said people that keep pigs ain't no better than farmers. Lonesome Dove quote.
Okay. So now I'm jumping kind of ahead, but like I said, this is the area we kind of consider. Well, they don't show Brittany here because we don't talk about Brittany so much anymore. But this is the area we kind of think about the Celtic people when they started settling in these areas, and when they got to the point where this was kind of all there were of the peoples, they sort of settled down a bit. But even then, they got run out by other folks.
So do they consider Picts Celts?
No. Well, no. Well, I don't think they were. I guess they did. Yeah, I guess they did.
Well, I never thought they were considered Celtic.
Well, I read.
I read the blue though.
This map shows it, but I read in places where that I'm not sure they did consider that to be part, because they talked about them being more in opposition.
I love the fact they used blue for the Pict.
Yeah, and they should.
Get you some old paint.
Yeah. So
we have a plant growing here now that's non-native called Dyer's Wold.
And it's called what?
It's called Dyer's Wold.
Okay.
It's not a native plant, but it grows here in places now. And you dig it up, the roots on it are that exact same color. And they used it to dye. A dyer was a person that dyed cloth.
Right.
And anyway, just a little side note.
Oh, is that? That's a good question, a good point. Because was that brought to your country because they were wanting to dye wool or something else? I mean, did that?
I don't know. I don't know if it just got here accidentally or if it was an on-purpose type thing. But it grows all over in the wild now, and it's kind of a pain in the backside kind of a plant.
Most of them are when they get
an invasive plant, But I'm going to step away for just a few seconds and light a grill. So I will be right back.
Yeah. Mark's cooking ribs today.
I'm cooking meat today.
Yeah, we'll be all right. So anyway, the only living Celtic or Celt languages that are still spoken today are in these areas here. Not so much England. I don't know if that's considered Celtic or not. I didn't think of that. But Wales certainly is still it is based in that, or what. Of course, they all speak English now, but they also all speak a Gaelic, and it's Celtic or Celt based. They talk a lot about the Hallstatt and Hallstatt area in the Latin cultures of the Celtic people. I'm going to keep saying Celtic. I'm trying to say Celt, but and you as the 450 to 250 BC, you kind of see how things spread out. But the Hallstatt people, that group, are the ones that really perfected the steel. Learned how to make steel. Now, they didn't know how to make steel like we make steel today, or when they learned how the Bessemer system or whatever we created in this country and make high-grade steels. But they made steels that could be sharpened and hardened, which was a big deal, because if you got a soft steel blade, you might as well be, fighting with brass. and soft steel and brass and stuff bends. You hit it, it bends. The weapon's not much good. You harden a piece of steel and sharpen it, it may cut right through that brass. Wait, you're cooking meat on a griddle? What kind of meat? He's lighting a smoker is what he's really doing, Tina. He's smoking ribs today. He told me last night and didn't invite me over. But he's, I'm gonna wait till he comes back.
Come on, unmute.
He didn't invite me to come over and eat. He's back. Never mind.
I did invite you.
Oh, wait, I couldn't come. That's right. Oh, me. Anyway, I was just showing more maps of how they spread out in places they went to. But I was telling them that this Hallstatt and Latin centers of the culture are the ones that really perfected the metallurgy part of the Iron Age and created those wonderful weapons. And this is some of those weapons. And we may have seen these pictures once before. I don't know. But this is some of the swords and things styles that they were creating and inventing. And because of this, I guess as you might figure, and the Celts being so nomadic, that's why they learned to use their weaponry and became, like I said, Europe's mercenaries. I mean, not only did they, I gotta say it, rape and pillage like Viking. Vikings are known for that. They're Celts, in essence. But they did it for themselves, but they also did it for other people, and it's kind of strange. I mean, that's one of the biggest things they were known for. Because they had these great weapons, they also had great soldiers and warriors, and they trained the fighting men and some women. And they talked about, you see pictures kind of like the Blue Men you were talking about a little bit ago, the Picts and the Scots, and that some of them thought they were such great warriors compared to everybody else that they became. They would have these huge ceremonies. Let's call it a war dance for a minute before a battle, and they might go into battle with naked, nothing but their sword or paint and their shield because they felt invincible. They really thought they wouldn't be beaten, or if they were, they weren't worthy somehow. And another, if you look at these swords were developed a long time before the Roman short swords and the gladius and the swords that were always given. Rome got credit. One of the reasons they conquered the known world at the time was their weaponry and the use of the sword they used and how their tactics. Well, they got that from the Celts. That's how the blade developed that the Romans used all those years and eventually conquered the Celts. And these are some more caches they found. And down below, you'll see some men racing to battle in various states of clothing. There's a guy that's got something looks like chainmail on and a helmet, but over here you got a guy that's got a pair of. He's got his pajamas on, his sword and his spear and his shield, and this guy in the middle looks like he might have on a pair of. I won't say he ain't got a breech clout on. I don't think he's pretty near naked. And these all kind of represent different stages and different ways they fought. You see Romans and you see them all in their shield and their leather and chainmail and their helmets and stuff. But these guys just went out there like a bunch of wild men. And they were very successful at it for a long time, at war. And like I said, they didn't like to settle down, so it kind of fits. So when they did settle down, and they actually did start doing this a little bit more towards as they were declining and the Romans were taking over and different groups were starting to, fight back their boundaries. and they would build these cities, or what they called oppida or oppidum, which is a wall city, sometimes with a palisade like we built forts here. And inside those, the oppida or oppidum, would actually be these other walled in. You still see this in the Middle East. People live in these. Um, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I need to look see if anybody's telling me over here. Da, da, da. I always want to be able to sword you see in movies. Really look that close. I don't know, John. Some you see some from these that they found that are similar, but actually most of them were compounds. Thank you, Carol. Individual families might have their own compound within this fort. I'm gonna call it a fort. Oppidum is the word they calling it on the everything I've watched. But so they did do this, but they still didn't do a lot of this. Just here and there. Well, I'll show you some places where they were. And this is kind of how they were built. And I was listening to one of the YouTube Celt documentaries, and they were talking about one of these cities. And I don't remember which one it was. I don't think they told which one. But there were at this point they were starting to have some records, I guess. And they were saying that the blacksmiths in this culture would have to fire up and make like tons of wooden nails just to build these things. Never thought about it that way. When you're making a nail one at a time, that's a lot of work. I'm going to tell you, that's a lot of cutting and heating and bending and sharpening, upsetting one end to make a nail head. I mean, it was a lot, but they nailed all this stuff together, and the blacksmiths got the job of making all those nails. And then somebody came along, I guess the Romans for one, and it seems like somebody else eventually. And they figured out that if they could get to these walls, they just burned them. They just light the whole place on fire. So the stone walls and stuff were okay, but they always had access. So somebody, I can't remember which particular battle it was or part what war, they just lit like the whole forest on fire and burned these down. They just all burned. So the Celts had to run away and find another place to be safe. And this is kind of how they were built inside. So they had to have these areas to farm in. So they would try to enclose them. Some of these structures were huge inside. It kind of reminded me of how the Mayans and the Aztecs built, and the mound builders here built these great, huge, walled-in cities, but everything was inside that wall. And this was kind of like that. This was an example they drew up. That almost looks like a rodeo arena, Mark, right there in the corner, down there in front.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was definitely for something, games.
Well, it says it's an assembly building, but I've seen something similar to this used for, I'm sure it was fighting of some sort. And this is how some of these oppidums appeared, and they found them over the years. Manching over here, this one on the east or the right, they talk about that one a lot in the videos. Now, this was something that kind of blew me away. Never thought of this. I don't know why. I mean, it makes sense, but I didn't know it was these guys. So there really were two things that made the Celts so successful, and the first one was salt. They've discovered salt mines within the interior of Europe and the Germany and what are now Germany and some of those places, and they mined salt. And because salt was such an important trade item, commodity, they traded it all over the known world at that time, and that's how they became wealthy, and that's how they were able to have spend time with art and do things kind of like the Native Americans out west and on the west coast were wealthy with food, so they had more time to make these great canoes and build totem poles, and they had more time. And the Celts were kind of like that too early on, and they traded salt everywhere until the salt mines ran out. And then they were like, okay, what are we going to do now? And their culture declined until they picked up on something else, became mercenaries and things. And then it came back up. It's really interesting how they fluctuated. And there is still a Celtic way to make salt that they use. Most of it's, they capture seawater and let it evaporate, and they go out there and take the fine stuff off the top and then the heavier stuff below. I mean, and they still call that Celtic mining, and they do that in France and in the UK and several different places. I got some pictures of that here in a minute. But this was an underground salt mine that's in, I think, Germany. This one may still be active. I'm not sure, or somewhat active. So this is the other way, the Celtic salt mining, where they did it in these
evaporation ponds.
Evaporation ponds. Thank you. And the difference they've got what the French call the fleur de sal, excuse me, and it's the powdery finest part of the salt that you can get off. And they literally have people who go out and scrape that off the top of when these things evaporate, that's what forms on top. That's why, and it's very expensive. I mean, $7 or $8 for a couple of ounces of that stuff. It's crazy. And you can kind of see the difference down the bottom. If I could have blown that up more, it wasn't a very clear picture. But you got mined salt, grainy salt on the right, and you got this flour. What that fleur de salt is the flour of salt. Is what that translates to, but basically. So it's the finest, bestest kind. Now I'm jumping back a little bit, so pardon me, but this is some of the early archaeological evidence they found of how they lived at different times, and they would find these scattered around again in different areas and not in very big groups, but just the architecture they used at different times, the Celts used.
That place there on the bottom looks like you could translocate that to Appalachia and it'd be just fit right in.
It would, wouldn't it? I mean, I've seen places that look a lot like that. They're still standing.
Mm-hmm. The top one wouldn't, but that bottom one definitely.
No, you're right. Well, back then when these guys were running around, a lot of Europe had forest on it. They hadn't been all cut down yet. So they were still using it just like we did here.
And now the same people.
Yeah, it's very true. So this picture is just, I threw this in here because this is what some people call the Romanization of the Celts. And if you knew see, this is another one places we needed that slip. That Carol, don't if you look too close. But this is a picture of Celtic gods, and Cernunnos, and there is in the middle, and then and the Celts were pagans, of course, until maybe they became Christians later. I don't know. But that's Apollo and Mercury on either side. So this was like a fusion in art or in their sculptures of the two cultures, Roman and Celtic, as things begin to change. Again, this is just some of the work they did with metal. It was just, pretty spectacular, especially for them. And again, this is more. I thought this was pretty cool. I believe all of this stuff was things that had been found in the UK and Brittany. That horn the guy's blowing in the middle is a real thing. That was what they called a battle horn. I mean, I don't know if
Yeah,
look at that thing. I don't know how you blew it, but and it certainly couldn't run with it in battle. But I got a couple of pictures of that. But that's a real thing.
and he looks like he's got on the same helmet
Yeah,
that the dude on Monty Python that talks about the rabbit. It's just a rabbit.
you know what? It does look like that.
it
I
looks
didn't think about that.
it looks exactly like that guy.
And if you look closer, you can
It's
see
just a wee bunny.
you can see that the armor in the battle combat way they went into combat. This guy's wearing a full suit of chainmail, and this is supposed to be a good replica or reproduction of the clothing at this particular time as the Celtic people became Celtic in Brittany and Europe in the UK, and some pottery and different structures of housing that they built. This lower building down here is not a church; that's a pagan worship center, actually. What?
He's got coyote hides hanging off of him, and
Well,
probably wolf hides.
probably wolf eyes, yeah.
But that's an interest. I had to get closer to the picture so I could see what that head of that thing looked like.
Of the animal?
Yeah, I can't even imagine holding that thing up and blowing it.
I can't either. That's
I
got
bet
to be
it weighed 40 pounds.
at least. I mean, it looks to me like it's solid brass, which is heavy no matter how you look at it. And this was a battle horn, so supposedly somebody carried this on the battlefield. I can't imagine how that worked out. And there's a little bit closer picture. I love this helmet. This is a real thing. I put that picture in there again to show you that that's this or one of these horns in both of these pictures. Maybe the same guy and just different clothing and different ornamentation. that helmet just about more than I can stand.
You could use that as a weapon.
You
And
sure could.
and the other one just makes me laugh.
And these are some depictions of different clothing from women and men, and the shields. And the shields developed over time. And this center part is common. And if I remember correctly from my reading, they put that piece in the middle so they could actually run it into somebody and use the impact from it to be a little more centralized, not spread out like a shield would be, but give a point of impact so when they hit the enemy, they could, get them off their feet, or at least off balance long enough to thrash. And what did the other movie they talk about? Cartoon Slash and Slash and Perry or something. That's Donald Duck, I think, or the Scarlet Avenger or whatever he called himself.
Dodge, spin, parry, thrust.
Well, yeah. And here's some more. There's that same guy.
That was the move. Dodge, spin, parry, thrust.
And his bill went snap. Okay, more naked guys, and this is what I was saying. These guys, the Celtic warriors, were known to going into battle bare butt naked, and there's a couple guys there that have on some kind of a and some pants, and some of them have on some kind of headdress. But there's a whole lot of naked skin there, which, while it may have given lots of freedom of movement, certainly doesn't give a lot of protection from sharpened edged weapons, even brass ones. But that's why that's there. I didn't put that in there for the adult erotica effect. I put that in there to show because that's an example. And you see that common, not those shields at the top. That's earlier. But as they developed, they almost always had this centerpiece. And later you see a lot of the Viking shields or somebody's shields that have some of them even have a spear point in the center. I don't remember ever seeing that on the Romans. Their phalanxes or their troops had shields that fit kind of together and they could make a wall with. But I don't remember seeing them have that kind of a thrusting component. And the women don't. What did I miss there? Gotta have a strong neck. Oh boy, here we go again. Sorry, Carol. Hey, Dave's back just in time to sign his permission slip. And I stopped there for the day because I started getting confused. Or not confused. I just wasn't. There was just so much. I mean, and this is what I run into because I want to do the best show I can. And then I realized, wow, I need to know so much more. I mean, there's just so much more about these people to know. It's amazing. And how they developed so much different than, I mean, like the Romans and all these cultures start out kind of the same way, but most of them begin to centralize and have walled cities and fortresses and capitals and centers of their culture and their civilization. You had, Rome, and then you had over here we had the Mayans had cities, and the Aztecs had main cities, but not the Celts. They were too busy running around. they were getting naked and fighting battles. Never wore skin. Never wear skin. Never wore skirt. Wait a minute. And fight didn't work well. Well, I'd say that's true too.
But Dave, that's why they say that the Scots were such great fighters, was that they lived in a country that had waist-high thistles and they'd never invented pants.
You think about that a minute. That's a good point. Now, I had something else that I was going to bring up. Oh, any questions or anything? Anybody? I highly recommend if you're at all interested in the topic, and it is a huge topic. But I would highly recommend going to YouTube and just type in the Celts, and you'll get there's a 3-hour documentary, which was like a 3-part thing from National Geographic or somebody. It's very well done, and it really explains a lot of this I've tried to say, but much better. They probably had writers and scripts and all that. I'm doing this on my cuff, and I do have notes sometimes, but on this one I didn't make a lot of notes because I wasn't sure where to start. I have notes on my slides and I didn't read any of them, so that's how bad I do. The kilt helped with chafing, or so I have read. Now, it could be. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've worn a breech clout some, and actually I found it to be somewhat
freeing.
Freeing. Yeah. And it was cooler, and it was not chafing. At least I never had a problem with it. And so I think a kilt.
They were wool. We wore wool ones.
When we wore wool, yeah, they were wool. And I've always wanted a kilt. I've tried to get Brenda to buy me one or make me one for years. But I've been thinking about getting one of those utility kilts, and it's got pockets in it and stuff. So I have that at least.
I got married in a kilt.
I know you did, and I'm jealous as hell of that.
And I got the whole 9 yards. It's a great kilt.
Literally the whole 9 yards.
It's just one giant piece of cloth.
Which is something else, since you said that. I don't know how many of you spend as much time as I do on a computer, I guess. But if you've ever heard of this guy, Andy the Highlander. If you check him out, go check him out on. You don't do. I think he's on Facebook. He wrote this book called Locks and Legends, and he
Maybe I have seen it.
He
Some.
usually wears a great kilt. That's usually what he's got on, at least in his videos. And he just did a series where he walked, and I guess maybe he sort of was the guide, but he walked what they call the Western Way, which was a real part of the a main path or trail that they used back in Celtic times and
Right.
Early Scottish days. And it took them 5 or 6 days to walk it, and they stayed at campsites and inns. A couple of times they stayed in these little cabins, but most of the time he was sleeping in a tent in the rain. Part of the time, at least part of the time. But I just got this book, and the guy he kind of got started doing this stuff because he got picked to be in the Outlander series on TV. You know, the Outlander
Yeah.
mini series or whatever it's called. It's been more than a mini series now. Brenda watched it. I never did watch it, but this guy was in those. He did a lot of side parts, extras. But that's how he got kind of back into, I guess, reliving his culture and started learning about all these different places. And now he does short videos and telling about things and places. And he does guided tours now. He did that walk where, like I said, there were people that went with him. I don't know if he was the guide or if he was just there. Funny guy, smart guy. I highly recommend you check him out too. And but he always when he was hiking, he wore a kilt part of the time, not the great kilt. Most of the time he had on just a short kilt when he was hiking. But sometimes he did have on shorts. But most of the time he's got a kilt on, and most of the time it is a great kilt or whatever it's called. It may not be the right terminology. I've heard it called that. I don't know if they're all the same. But look him up. He's I don't know. I'll see if I can find the link to him real quick.
I really like that. Kay's mentioning that Aubonite band, and
oh yeah,
and they're good, very good.
He's saying they lead tours over
But
there.
then I like the old Gandalf Stormcrow guy too. That's got the Clanadonia.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know that guy too. I think
He doesn't know it, but he played at my wedding.
he don't know it, but he did.
Well, his music was playing anyway.
Oh, I'm trying to find a good link for the Western Way while I'm at it because that was interesting. And I keep getting things about U.S. West and Texas and stuff.
There ain't nothing wrong with the U.S. West.
Uh-huh.
There ain't nothing wrong with the U.S. West.
No, this is not what I'm looking for right this minute. Any other time, that's what I'd be looking for. This is, that's a link to Wikipedia's site about the Western Way. You can just get a general idea. I mean, it'd be a fun thing to do if I could still walk that far. I think it'd be cool to do that. And then I was going to look up Andy. He's on YouTube. Here he is. Here we go. Here's his YouTube page. And the Western Way is on there. It was 7 days they hiked. It took them 7 days to hike it. I may need to go back and listen to this number 7. I may not have watched that one yet. Fun guy though. I don't know. I just enjoy his history. Maybe I just enjoy hearing him talk about it. But I do. But really cool guy. Look him up. He's worth the effort. And he is on my face.
Jamesy does the Western Way and the Rob Roy path.
Who does?
Jamesy.
Yeah.
I assume that the Rob Roy path is in the south.
Yeah, I would think so. I think.
I think he was in southwestern Scotland, right down by the border.
Yeah, I was thinking he was a border guy or
He was a reaver.
yeah.
A fancy way of saying rustler.
Same thing, different country. Oh, there's Andy with his new book, Locks and Legends.
But them Palmies deserved it, so.
The Palmies.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. They deserved it.
Yeah, they did. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I. All right, let me see if I can present this, and you get a little idea about Andy.
Talking about Palmies makes me hungry for hoo grubs.
I don't know how cool those are. That's supposed to be sturdy, but we'll see.
Wow, that's the orange I've ever seen on a Scottish Highland cow.
Look at him tearing that fence down.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to come back in there with the goldenrod fence stretchers and get that thing tightened back up.
I don't know what he's feeding them.
They're giving them carrots.
Well, that one looked like it was square though.
Raccoons come out in the day?
Are the coon? Is the coon out there?
That's what I just asked.
Is the coon out there?
Maybe.
Well, if he is, hold the laptop up. Let us see. Mark's got a coon that's been raised.
No, I'm not holding no laptop up. I am getting the rifle tired.
No, I wanted to see him first.
Well, you can see him while he's dead.
Okay. Are we gonna hear it go bang? Anyway, check out Andy, guys. He's a fun guy. He's got a lot of info. If you're interested in Scotland or Scottish history and culture, he's really good. I'm running through some of his tour. There's a Outlander tour group. He does. Yeah, that's one of the things he does now is does tours of the Outlander filming sites and talks about the ones that are real and that they use as backdrops. Oh, there he's drinking heavenly water. A good quote I picked up from him doing there they are with the getting married on the anvil. That's so cool. I've read about that, never seen it done. Okay, I know that's probably not what I should be looking at.
The other shelf is in here.
Cool stuff, though. At least I think so. Yeah, Mark, he called me. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday morning, pretty early, and he said he answered the phone. We've kind of always. I know coon has many good and bad connotations, but it's always been a nickname for just local people, and or some people at least. And we've always kind of called each other that from time to time. And he called me up. And the first thing out of his mouth was coon, which comes from South Park, I believe. And he said, "You ain't gonna believe this," but at 3:30 in the morning, I think it was, he had gotten up to I believe, go to the restroom, and he heard something out back or saw something out back. Oh, the light, his security light or the safety light or whatever that it comes on when they walk in the backyard. And there on the back porch was he out there?
The coon.
I was
No,
I was telling him
I have no joy.
I was telling him you called me the other morning. You said at 3:30 you'd found the coon out on the back porch.
Yeah,
And
I
he's
didn't
a great
find
big
him this
guy
time.
too.
No joy?
No joy. He's got to explain that, I guess. Anyway, he said this thing looks like it weighs about 30 pounds, and that's a big coon. I think the biggest one I remember anybody having that I know was weighed was 40 pounds, and that was a huge coon. I think that was his brother Brad. I think they actually caught that one, and were trapping and caught it. Is that not true?
Pardon?
Didn't you or Brad catch a coon one time? It was 40 pounds.
40 plus, 47, 40.
That
I
must,
got a photo of it in here somewhere. It was a Mongo.
that's like the size of a small bear.
We had, I had a friend in college that had a pet boar coon that weighed 68 pounds, maybe.
Oh, geez. He
And
just overfed.
he was way overweight, but
Yeah.
they can get great big. This particular coon, like I said, I have no joy there. I was unable to locate my adversary.
They're going to face off again. I have no doubt soon.
He keeps trying to get in a chicken house, and he's been eating horse feed, and he's been eating bird seed and strawberries.
Strawberries. He got their strawberries. Diana said if we had a massive coon living in our neighbor's roof, they'll do that. It made the dogs nuts.
Well, I think this guy lives in the top of our barn.
I bet he does.
Or
he or she.
But we get. Oh, it's got to be a big boar. It's a great big coon, so it's got to be a male. But I mean, we live right here on the river, so we got a lot of coons.
Right.
But they have pretty much left us alone till this recent one. And he's asking for it.
Well, Mark pointed out that the strawberries are kind of grown for pleasure and for a couple people that really like them because they don't get many strawberries and they don't have much of a growing season out there. It's not, I don't know if that's strawberry country really. And the darn earth says the coon eating their strawberries. That makes him enemy number one.
Well, I'm more worried about him eating all the horse feed.
Well, yeah, you are,
but you know, it's like coons can't stand not having horse feed.
Diana says he'd sit on the roof at night and stare down at the dogs.
Yeah.
And they would do that. A coon would do that.
Well, our dogs started scrambling around out here in the yard like we're on to something. He'd probably been back over here, and they caught his trail, and they chased around the tree, one of our big willow trees, and then up and underneath, we got that old meat house that's kind of on the side of the yard.
Right, along the fence, yeah.
Yeah, and they all ran under there, and I'm like, he's somewhere, but
yeah, they've caught scent of him now. He'll have a little bit.
They chase him. I think they chase him every day, and the Ursus horribilis, teeny tiny ensis. When I let him out in the morning, all he does is just run out, barking his head off as hard as he can go.
Nothing.
And he's like little dog that hung out with Spike.
Oh,
He barks in every direction, 360 degrees. Like he's clearing his zone, you know.
Oh, in case
And
you don't
if
know it,
that coon ever got a hold of him, he'd be in deep trouble.
yeah, he might be in trouble. Mark, they've adopted this little Pomeranian, and its name's Wolfgang or Wolfgang, and Mark has declared that he's given him a scientific name.
Yeah, a grizzly bear, Ursus horribilis.
Horribilis.
And then his subspecies is teeny tiny ensis.
He's not very big, but
He's about this long.
He thinks he's the monster.
And the big he gives the big dogs such a hard time, and I mean they could just eat him, but none of them have the cojones to take him on.
He's got them all bluffed. He said, "Diane, we had a chipmunk that did the same thing. My cat put a stop. Oh, her cat put a stop to it. Oh, which is also another thing. I don't know if I tell you this or not. Yeah, I did. And told these guys, we've got a porch light that's out. If you pull into the park again, kind of like yours, if somebody comes to the front door or parks, it comes on and lights up the sidewalk,
right,
in the edge of the porch. So, but we don't have it on a lot because we don't really have a lot of company anyway. But we don't think about it being on or off because it's also attached to one of the porch lights, and if we don't have them turned off physically outside, we don't want to leave them on all the time. Anyway, we're sitting in the living room the other night watching TV, and a light comes on, and suddenly the windows are lit up, the curtains, and I thought somebody had pulled into the driveway. And I said, "What's that? Where are those lights coming from?" Well, it turns out that we had the security light on, and something had triggered it. So I get up and I look out the window, and there's Celts, a great big giant yeller, long-haired tabby cat. And I know what he's here for. He's here to eat little birds that fall out of the nest, or he's after our chipmunks, which we don't seem to have many this year. And that SOB, if I catch him with one of my chipmunks out there, he's going to be dead kitty cat. I warned him twice now. If I catch him again, I'm going to find something.
Well, and I've got a whole bunch of catch alive traps, have-a-hearts.
Yeah, I don't have any.
I just need to go set them and
catch him.
What I usually catch, though, when I put those out are skunks.
I was going to say, you're going to catch other things. You'll be lucky to catch the coon, but you might get a badger and a skunk. You ever caught a badger in one of those things?
I have.
I bet that's a load of fun.
I also caught a badger with a piggin string, which is the rope that you use to tie the calf's legs together when you calf rope.
How'd you do that?
Well, it went into my neighbor's house and went underneath his bed.
Oh, God.
And I told him, I said, I looked down under there and saw it like grinning at me. And I said, because he didn't know if it was a coon or what, something had come in the house. He's like, it could be a house cat. It might be a coon. Who knows what it is? It just kind of pushed the door open and came in the house. And I'm like, oh, it's a badger, dude. And so I got him to get on one side of the bed. I stood on the bed with the piggin string. With a loop, yeah. Just like a little lariat. And I'm like, you go to the other side of the bed and poke at him with the broom and make him come running out. And he did that.
I'd like to see this.
And I caught the badger, and they don't have a neck, so I ended up catching him around his middle, and his front legs went through, and so I had him right behind his forelegs, and he took off running, and so I started following him out the door, and then he decided he wanted to run back up that rope,
Right up at you, huh?
And you can't push hard enough on a pegging string to keep a badger off of you. So I swirled around and jerked him off his feet and ran him outside onto the deck, and he jerked my little rope out of my hand. He was a big old badger. He jerked that pegging string out of my hand and took off running. And my buddy was like, "You want that pegging string?" And I'm like, "That badger can have that pegging string." I'm sure it was.
You can't push hard enough.
I'm sure he chewed that thing off in just a
Oh,
matter
I'm
of
sure
seconds.
he did. And for the record, we should talk about this sometime. I guess might as well be right now. You guys have seen badgers in other TV shows or on Disney or storybooks, and they're about badgers that live in Europe or England or wherever they're
And
at.
they're offering you tea and crumpets.
Yeah, and they're offering you tea and crumpets. The badgers that we have here are like a honey badger from Africa. They're going to eat you up. They're not going to offer you tea and crumpets.
They're gonna stick you with their shiv, is what they're gonna do.
They're going to shiv you. They're not going to help. They are mean and ornery and strong, and you wouldn't want to get in a corner with one. You're not going to win, and they're a lot different than those badgers you see.
And they can get up to about 30 or 40 pounds too.
Yeah, that's a normal thing for them, though, isn't it?
And I've had times where I had 6 dogs with me and come up on a badger, and he make all of us run away. I thought I had found a bull snake outside of its native range one day because I kept hearing this noise. It sounded like a bull snake hissing. And I had 6 dogs with me, and it was in a circle of not life, circle of sagebrush.
Circle of life. Okay, go ahead.
And I looked into that circle of sagebrush. Sometimes sage plants grow, they're kind of dead in the center, and there's a living wall kind of around it. And a lot of times there'll be a badger hole or something in there. And I looked into that center, and there he was. And he was a great old big one. And he come jumping out of there. And I had 6 big dogs. And he chased all of us away. Just like I was the first to go.
Oh, see how much fun it would be to have somebody following us around, or when we could go around, following us around with a video camera and just getting all this stuff on film. It would be, we could live forever on that money.
Well, what amazes me is how quick they can dig out, completely out of sight. Like they'll go to like a prairie dog hole, which, that hole's that big now.
Yeah, it's not big enough generally for them.
And they will dig. If you spook them, they'll run to one of those holes, and their claws are like this long.
Yeah, they're
and they just dig. They'll be gone. They're just buried behind them. They're just throwing dirt up behind them and burying themselves in that hole. Then they'll dig back out. But
I know you've probably seen them. I don't know if you guys, we got a lot of Disney fans. If you've ever been walking or hiking or just out walking, say at the resorts or something, or out in the woods there at the campground or whatever, and you've ever seen a armadillo there, they can dig almost as fast. They've got claws and stuff. They're built to dig just like a badger is. And I had the girls out one time, and we went for a short walk one morning early I think it was between the Wilderness Lodge Hotel and the campground. There's like a bike trail or something. And we were on the bike trail, and an armadillo come running across the trail, which is a sidewalk. And he hit the ground, that nose hit the ground, and he was disappearing just almost too fast for me to jump off and grab him by the tail. And I grabbed him by the tail and held him just long enough. I don't know if I've got a picture of that or not. I think Jennifer was with me. I don't know if Kelly was or not. One of the girls was with me. But I grabbed him by the tail before he got gone. But man, that soft sand in Florida, I mean, he was disappearing in a hurry. Welcome back in, Don. Thanks for hanging out. It was they're diggers now, and that would have been that would so you and 6 dogs back away. That's funny.
He was all business.
He wasn't messing around.
But
You interrupted his dinner, his lunch, or his tea time. Yeah, if he's gonna have tea and crumpets, you ain't invited. I gotta write that down. That'd be good in the book.
well, brother, I'm taking off. I'm gonna go.
All right,
you gotta meet.
All right, when's your company coming? Or are they already here?
No, they'll be here about 12:30 or 1.
Well, set me a plate. I might make it.
All right.
I don't know if I can be there early
Get
enough.
on the fast mover.
yeah, there you go. All right, see you, bro. Thanks.
Later.
Always. Love you, man.
Good show, buddy. Later.
So there we have it, folks. Oh, and I'm a salty bear today because of the Celts trade in salt and how that made them some of the most advanced, one of the most advanced civilizations in Europe, or our recorded history in general. Tina, I'll pass it along. I'll talk to him, I'm sure, tomorrow or the next day. We've talked a little bit more regular lately for some reason. And that's the way it is. Yep, that's the way it is, according to Walter. Anyway, anybody else doing anything fun this weekend? This is or wait a minute. Let's see. Well, what day is the 4th on this year? Come on, calendar, open up. Friday. So anybody got any big 4th of July? I don't know what I'll do next week for the 4th of July. I'll have to see. I may see for next. I may see if the Amy house or Brenda says it a little bit differently. She said that should be, but anyway, it's the Amy house. I may see if they're doing something special for the 4th of July. I may try to go over there and shoot it from there. Thank you, Tina. And you guys have a great weekend. Anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I'll figure something out. But it'll have something to do with the 4th of July. I promise you that. One of my favorite holidays, always has been. Since I was a yonker. I used to love to go to the parades and stuff. Don't do that so much anymore, but we have a Disney trip. 29 days. Wow. It'll be hot, so be careful. But other than that, I wish I was going along. We keep talking about taking a little short trip down. We just haven't done it yet. We've got too many things going on, and now Brenda can't walk. So until we get her healed up, I can't hardly walk. She's worse than I am. I can get around a lot, but I never thought I'd say this, but I can get around a lot better than she can. Now, when I was younger, that was true. It's not been true in several years, but right now it is. Well, Don, so would I. And someday it's going to happen one of these days. Somewhere. It's bound to. And I would like nothing more than to come to Disney sometime when there was a bunch of people there that we know and actually get to meet some folks, because I think that would just be quite a I will. Right now we definitely would have to right now. We probably would do that, Dawn. I'd like to tell you that I can go down there and walk all day like I used to, but I know I can't. But I'm gonna give it a hell of a try. But yeah, we'd have the scooter. We'd definitely be part of the scooter patrol. I just can't not deny that. Well, Diana, that would be my play. I would love to do that too, because Lord knows I'd like to meet you and Mike. In the house, we got a spare bedroom. You're always welcome. Well, that goes for anybody. If anybody ever comes down to Tennessee, give me a call. Which was something else I'd still like to do for folks that come down this way once in a while for their vacation and meet at Dollywood. I'd like to do that too. Hey, I got on a brand new shirt today. Nobody noticed this color, which I don't know what it looks like on the camera. It looks like a real faded orange. Oh, Lord, it looks almost like a University of Texas orange. Maybe not quite burning that. It's supposed to be some kind of brick color. But I broke down and bought me a couple new shirts, and I'm not allowed to wear them if I'm eating. They're strictly off limits for any time my hands or mouth have food. I can't eat and not get it all over me, I don't think. Oh, that's true, Don. Do you know when that is? What date that is? I actually heard Corey. I watched Corey's show with his girls the other night, and seems like I heard him tell somebody what the date was, but I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to meet at Dollywood, Don. I mean, I'm up to talk about that with anybody if there's ever a chance of getting some people together. We've talked about that before because I know that there are people here that go to Dollywood once in a while. Dave, Adventures with Dave, is there and on occasion. And I know that Carol has been there on vacation once, or been to the Smokies at least, and gone to Dollywood. Dollywood's compared to what Dollywood and its predecessors were when I was growing up, it's quite the destination now. If you're a roller coaster person, they got tons of roller coasters. If you're an arts and crafts person, they usually have some really cool stuff. I've done a little bit of blacksmithing work in my life, so I always like to see the blacksmiths work. And I love to watch them blow glass. I think that would be just the coolest thing to do, make something out of, make my own something out of hot glass. I think that'd just be great. Dollywood was voted America's favorite theme park. And you know what? I think I heard that, Don. I forgot about that. I do think I think I heard that too, which is a really big deal when you think about it. The amusement parks around the country, or theme parks, I guess it's the same thing. I just want to get over and get me a loaf of that cinnamon bread. I love cinnamon bread, and I just, every time I see somebody go over there, they get a box of that cinnamon bread or a loaf or whatever, and I'm dying to get over and get some of that. I would go today if I could just walk in and get that and come out. I wonder if you can buy that outside anywhere. Probably not. I'll have to check on that. I've been to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge a bunch, but never been to Dollywood. Well, Kay, you need to come up and go with us all when we go. I think it'd be a great time to go. Would be this fall when things cool down just a little bit and the leaves maybe are colored off, before they fall off. And, I know Dollywood decorates up for pumpkin. They got a huge pumpkin festival or pumpkin themed Halloween festival time period. What's the other harvest season, whatever they call it. And, we could make it a guided tour if you want to travel. We could make it on the weekend of the Great Pumpkin Way Off, and I could take everybody down to the Allard Pumpkin Festival, and then we could go to Dollywood. Oh, I didn't think about that, Kay. I bet you're right. I bet I could get it at the hotel. Fall meet up at Dollywood. Well, I'm all for it. If it could happen, I would be pleased to help organize something like that if there is such a thing as organization on such a trip. I just saw something here. I don't remember ever seeing this before. It's probably been here a long time. Let me see what happens when I click this button. Comments take the stage. Live comments from viewers will appear on screen during your stream. Keep the conversation going and make your audience part of the experience. Well, let's just see how this works. And maybe I did it. Somebody type something in new. I want to see if it comes up on the screen. There it is. Wow, look at that. I might actually be able to keep up with chat just a little bit. Well, Dawn, I may have to talk about that. I'd love to be able to get together when we had a few people that can make it down, or up, or out, in, whatever. I'd really like to do that. Oh shoot, what was I going to say? Well, I forgot now. I got distracted by the things popping up in my chat screen. I would clear my calendar for it. Sounds like there's some interest here. Let me write down some things here. I'm here. I'm not dead. Or frozen. I'm just writing. Okay. Where did you fly into? Knoxville? Well, I would say Knoxville because you probably get a better deal, but you could fly into Tri-Cities. It's possible that you could get a ticket at the same well, I say that. I would probably go to Knoxville. It'd be closer to Dollywood. Tri-Cities is closer to us now, but I don't know. The flights never have been that good or convenient out there since I've been around. Maybe that's changing now that the city's grown a lot, but that would be up here closer to us. John, you need to come down and see your brother. We've talked about that before. I'm going to put your name on this list. Yeah, and Tina and Chuck, maybe. Yeah, Knoxville's about 40, give or take, depending on traffic, about that far away. But there's lots of really pretty ways to get there if you want to just enjoy the scenic route. That'd be great. I'd love to do that. We'll talk about that. I'll talk to Brenda about it too. We've got something coming up. No, it doesn't affect this, but it made me think of it. We had gotten, this is something that don't have anything to do with it. I guess I took it down to the house. We got a letter the other day, and we'd actually been kind of waiting on this. Our high school was having that's why I'll have to check some dates before I make any kind of plans. Too many plans. Oh, Tennessee always has a scenic route. That's right, Don. I used to do. Honda used to have a big fest ride-in, bike gathering here in Knoxville. They started in Asheville and then moved it to Knoxville, and it was called the Honda Hoot. I don't know where they got that name, but an owl, of course, was the mascot and logo. And people used to come in from all over the country to ride in and on their Gold Wings. And our club worked a booth where we handed out maps and we didn't do any guided tours. Well, I'm sure some of the guys probably did with people, but not officially. And I used to love to do that. I've never met a stranger, so All right, Diana, thanks for coming in. Say hi to Mike. Missed him today. Anyway, yeah, there's always a scenic route around here. Scenery is usually not a problem. I'm now that we've moved up here, just driving around the house out in the country here to places that the scenery up here just makes me so happy. It's just, I love the hills and the woods and well, come on back, Don. I don't know. I come across the hill here and get a view out over the valley a little bit. And, it's checkerboard with wood lots and open fields and barn lots. And I just love it. I love it. It's made me realize just how much I miss living out in the country. I wish the hell I was in better physical shape and I'd really enjoy it like I could have. So that's why I'm trying to get back more on my feet. I think of all the stuff I used to do, like blacksmithing and stuff I'm not really able to do now, but I could do that here. And I want to do some of that here. More of that here. Oh, really, Don? Well, you were down in, if I remember correctly, you're not from Jasper, but you're down that way, right? You were down off that part of the plateau. I can't remember now. You told me, I can't think what's the name of that city or town. Tracy City, maybe? Or in that area? I should reach out to my boot camp. Oh, you got a buddy that lives here too? That's cool, John. I didn't know that. Yeah, Tracy City. That's what I couldn't think. You know what? I raced a motorcycle in Tracy City once. Tracy City has or had a motocross track, and we went down there. A buddy of mine went down there and raced one time. I won a trophy because I was the only person in my class. I was the slowest guy on the track, but I was the only one in my class, so I got a trophy. I was embarrassed to take it, to be honest, but I brought it, by God, because I won it fair and square. Oh, I still remember a lot of things, Don. I haven't forgotten everything yet. Yes, he told me. He molded me in basic training, according to him. I got you. I knew it was, I was thinking, Don, Savage Gulf and the other places there on that edge of the plateau and the really cool scenic areas. And I've been to Tracy City a few times. So Monteagle was the other place I was trying to remember. I didn't think you were from Monteagle, but like I said, Tracy City, I used to go there for races. And I actually went down there one year. I had an really outdated old motocross bike, Husqvarna, and I was slow as dirt on it. When I was out by myself, I felt like I was really flying, but not when I was out there against anybody that was even a little bit fast. But still, I can say I did it. I banged my knee up so bad I couldn't hardly walk just from riding it. I couldn't hardly move my knee for a month. I knew then that I was already over the hill for riding motocross. Yeah, it is gorgeous. I tell you what, if you've never been to a place like Tennessee with some of the geographic changes and differences, like the plateau is an amazing place by itself. And then there's places that coming from the east to the west where you literally climb up the side of that plateau and get up on top. It's just cool. Jeff had a dirt bike too. His first motor. Well, mine too. Mine too, Don. I bought my first motorcycle that I rode to work and ran a paper route on. In fact, that's how I bought it, was running a paper route. It was a motorcycle when I was 14. Because you could get a license for a small bike back then at 14. I don't know what the laws are now on that part. I think you still can, but I'm not sure. in Tennessee, not everywhere. And I think they've actually released or relaxed some of those laws, and I think you can actually buy something that's probably way too big for a 14-year-old today. But that's my opinion, not necessarily shared by anybody else that probably doesn't ride anyway. Same guy that made that law probably is one that says that you don't have to wear a helmet, which is another argument. But they won't get to that today. Never mind. Yeah, I've had dirt bikes off and on for years. Had a load of fun riding them. Got hurt a time or two, but never too bad. Jeff saved that money and bought it. Yeah, that's how my dad and mom didn't really want me to ride, and I don't think they thought I would do it, to be honest. If they had to do it over again, they probably would have said, "No, you don't need one, even if you get a job." But I got a job, made the money, and paid it, bought it, and rode it for 2 or 3 years, and I traded it up on another one, slightly bigger, when I was 16, because you can move up back then when you were 16. And I rode that one, took that bike to Florida with me, and rode it. That was my transportation. The first year I went to A&P school, air power plant, airframe and power plant school down there to learn how to work on airplanes. And that was my transportation down there the first year. And the second year I had a little car, a little Toyota, and I took that down because I went by my buddy that I went with before didn't go down. He didn't go back, so I didn't have any way to take my bike down there. And back then I didn't have the gear in it. Didn't want to ride it down there by myself. Plus, I wanted to make sure I had a backup, I guess. But and then eventually I sold that bike, and I wish I'd kept it. Dang it! And I went for a little spell with that one. Then I bought another dirt bike, the one I raced on, and then I bought another street bike. And then didn't have one for a little while, and I bought Connie, my blue Kawasaki named Connie, that I've often said I think saved my life in some ways, brought me back to myself. I put about 65,000 miles on her in a couple of years and just absolutely loved riding that motorcycle. It's still in the garage. Brenda keeps wanting to know why I don't sell it, and I'm just not going to sell it. She's too important to me, and I'd like to ride it again. So there. Anyway, folks, I guess people have other things going on. I don't know who's on today. I think I heard Josh and Jenna say last night that they were going to be on today. Oh, they were going to do all 4 parks today or something. Ride 1 or 2 rides in each park and then park hop. I don't know if that's because the rules they've relaxed today to let people park hop more like they used to or what, but I think they're going to be on. I saw Jeff on earlier this morning with This Our Dreams. He was wandering around Port Orleans, but the one that used to be Dixie Landings. And they were staying in the bayous. No, maybe he was in Port Orleans. Anyway, they were in the Bayou Cottage area. We've stayed there. Brenda and I stayed there. We stayed there with the kids at both of those places. And I always enjoyed them. And they're so big and spread out. They're different than the others. As somebody said this morning, I watched him for a few minutes. Somebody on there said that they built that back when they still remembered how to design a Disney resort. Anyway, guys, I'm serious about a get together. I'll put something together and send it out to everybody. If I don't have your email address, please send it to me. I will even go ahead and step out here, and I think I can do this. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't do that. I started putting it in my chat so everybody could have it cut. You know what? I'm going to anyway. What the hell? Everybody that I do or don't want it's probably already got it anyway. There you go. cut and paste. If you want it, that's my email. And if I don't have your email address or some way to contact you through a DM, send me a link or a name or whatever, and I'll get back to you. If we decide to put this thing together, we will. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you before I go. We got a letter the other day, and this is something that we'd actually been watching for on Facebook, but our high school class is going to have its 50th anniversary reunion, 50th year reunion. We've not had 50. I've not been to 50. I've not been to any, in fact. I moved away right after high school. I've never been back for a reunion. But they're going to have a 50th here in a couple of months, and I think we're going to go. I think we've decided we need to go back and see how many people we can remember. If anybody remembers us, it's funny because Brenda and I dated in high school, and the gal that wrote me back about the reunion, I think she dated in high school and they married, and they're still married. So I know at least 3 couples that went to school together that are all still married. Not that that's what I'd go there to find out about, but I do want to go back. But that will not interfere with a get together at Dollywood. So we'll talk about that. And I'll be serious about it if you guys are. I'll work on it. Because I mean, that excites me, to be honest. All right, folks. I'm going to let everybody go. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the enthusiasm. Thanks for the encouragement. I'll be in touch. And if I'm not in touch, I'll probably do a show next week. I know people will be busy. I'll probably be online. Like I said, I might go over to Amy's house and do something over there because I'm almost sure they're going to be doing something over there for the 4th of July. Or this town may be. So hashtag Dollywood Meetup. There you go. All right, guys. Again, thanks. Love you guys. Everybody be safe this weekend and next. And if you're going on a trip or vacation or anything like that, be safe on the roads or in the sunny skies. And I'll see you all again real soon. Bye.